By 3 in the afternoon, your ability to make a rational decision is completely gone.
You assume this is a lack of willpower or discipline. You believe you simply need to push harder to maintain your focus. It is actually a toxic accumulation of a chemical called glutamate. When you perform deep work, your synapses physically jam with excitatory transmitters. You are biologically choking your own hardware. Let us examine the exact biological reality of your late afternoon executive dysfunction. You have spent 6 hours answering emails, solving complex logical problems, and regulating your emotional responses in meetings. As the afternoon approaches, you experience a profound, heavy cognitive friction. A task that would have taken you 5 minutes in the morning now feels like navigating a dense maze. You cannot decide what to eat for dinner. Popular psychology labels this decision fatigue and tells you to simply build better habits. But your inability to function is not a psychological weakness. It is a strictly chemical, highly physical bottleneck. You have pushed your neurobiology past its maximum metabolic threshold. To understand why your brain has forcefully shut you down, we must dissect the chemical exhaust of human thought. This is glutamate. It is the absolute most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the human vertebrate nervous system. It is the raw biological spark plug of human consciousness. Without glutamate, you cannot form a memory. You cannot learn a new skill. And you cannot architect a thought. It is mathematically required to initiate the electrical action potentials that power your prefrontal cortex. Every single time you focus intensely on a spreadsheet, articulate a complex sentence, or suppress a distraction, your neurons violently release glutamate into the synaptic cleft to transmit the data. Deep work requires an astronomical volume of cognitive firing. Therefore, during a state of high-level execution, you are dumping massive, continuous waves of glutamate into your synapses. But there is a devastating biological catch. Glutamate is an activation chemical. Once the signal has been successfully transmitted, the chemical must be instantly removed from the synapse. Your brain utilizes highly specialized glial cells called astrocytes to act as the biological cleanup crew. These astrocytes rapidly absorb the used glutamate, converting it into a harmless byproduct to be recycled. Under normal evolutionary conditions, this system is flawless. But the modern corporate workflow is fundamentally unnatural. When you sustain intense cognitive focus for hours without resting, the mathematical rate of glutamate production vastly outpaces the speed of clearance.
Your astrocytes simply cannot vacuum the chemical fast enough. The biological exhaust begins to accumulate. You are mathematically building a highly toxic bottleneck inside your own head.
Because the astrocytes have failed to clear the gap, the residual glutamate physically jams the synapse. The chemical exhaust has nowhere to go. It pools. It lingers. This is a state of severe biological crisis. Because glutamate is strictly an excitatory transmitter, its continued presence in the synapse means it continues to aggressively stimulate the receiving neuron. The receiving neuron is locked in a state of relentless, uninterrupted firing. In clinical neuroscience, this phenomenon is known as excitotoxicity. If a neuron is continuously bombarded by excitatory chemicals without an opportunity to reset, it literally exhausts its own cellular energy and dies.
Too much glutamate is fundamentally lethal to your brain tissue. Your nervous system is highly intelligent. It detects this rising toxicity. It registers that the local concentration of glutamate in your lateral prefrontal cortex is reaching dangerous, critical levels.
You feel the immense friction of this toxicity, but you misinterpret the signal. You assume you were just a bit tired. You drink a double espresso, hoping to artificially force the neurons back online. Caffeine is entirely useless here. Caffeine strictly blocks adenosine, the sleep pressure molecule. It does absolutely nothing to clear the toxic accumulation of glutamate from your synapses. You are now trapped in the worst possible biological state. You are a wide-awake, heavily caffeinated brain, physically choking on its own metabolic exhaust. Because you refuse to stop working, your brain must intervene to prevent literal cellular death. It executes a ruthless, non-negotiable biological defense mechanism. It initiates the algorithmic shutdown. To stop the production of glutamate, your brain must forcibly stop you from engaging in complex thought. Your brain actively throttles the lateral prefrontal cortex. It deliberately disconnects your access to high-level executive function, strategic planning, and impulse control. It mathematically forces you into a state of profound apathy and severe cognitive lethargy. You lose all desire to continue the project. You find yourself mindlessly staring at your screen or scrolling through your phone.
This sudden laziness is not a character flaw. It is an evolutionary emergency brake. By forcing you to become apathetic, the brain instantly halts the release of any new glutamate, giving the astrocytes time to clear the existing clog.
But the modern worker does not respect the emergency brake. You attempt to use sheer willpower to fight through the biological block, punishing yourself for your perceived lack of discipline.
By forcing your brain to continue calculating through the toxicity, you trigger an acute stress response. Your system floods with cortisol, attempting to use panic and anxiety as a substitute for clean cognitive energy.
You are redlining a broken engine. If you continue to force execution during a glutamate clog, you are mathematically guaranteeing severe neuroinflammation and total systemic burnout by the end of the week.
You cannot outwork neurotoxicity. To restore your cognitive bandwidth, you must yield to the biology. You must deliberately execute the clearance protocol. You must initiate a period of absolute cognitive disengagement. You must completely halt the processing of novel data.
This does not mean watching a video, checking social media, or listening to an educational podcast. Consuming media still requires active neural firing. It still produces glutamate.
You must step away from the desk. Execute 20 minutes of mindless, repetitive physical movement like walking, or engage in a protocol of non-sleep deep rest.
By plunging the brain into a state of zero cognitive demand, you halt the incoming exhaust. The astrocytes finally have the mathematical window they require to clear the synaptic cleft and recycle the toxicity.
The clog is eliminated. The neuroexcitotoxicity subsides. When you return to the desk, your prefrontal cortex is completely unlocked, and your executive function is biologically restored.
You now understand how to manually flush the chemical exhaust of daily deep work and protect your neural pathways. But clearing your daily exhaust means absolutely nothing if your brain is physically shrinking from a chronic hormonal drip.
Click here to discover the clinical reality of cortisol toxicity and learn exactly why your high-functioning anxiety is mathematically destroying your long-term memory.